Coming up on Network Africa. M23 rebels accused of executing at least 21 civilians in eastern DRC. A second group of white Afrikaner South Africans arrived quietly into the United States. And heavy rains and thunderstorms for parts of Nigeria this week. The expert tells us what to expect and how to stay safe. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. I'm Joke Rogers. We begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where Human Rights Watch is accusing M23 rebels of executing at least 21 civilians. In a report published by the NGO, the abuses took place on February 22nd and 23rd in Goma, the capital of North Kivu province, after the group occupied the region since January 27, 2025. Human Rights Watch confirmed that dozens of M23 fighters arrived in Goma's Kasika neighborhood on February 22nd, claiming they shot 7 people in the head near the Katindo military camp, a former Congolese army barracks. The NGO body adds that bodies of 11 more people, including a boy, were found at a construction site about 100 meters from the camp. Well, taking advantage of their special status granted by U.S. President Donald Trump, another group of white South Africans have arrived in the United States. The second group is said to be much smaller than the first, and they arrived without any fanfare, unlike the first group. The group reportedly left Johannesburg on a commercial flight, unlike the first group, which reportedly used a private jet. Both groups are part of the approximately 8,000 Afrikaners who will be resettled in the United States over the next few months after being granted refugee status by President Donald Trump. Back in February, U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order halting all aid to South Africa, accusing the government of mistreating Afrikaners. He describes them as victims of unjust racial discrimination, claiming their land is being taken away. Meanwhile, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has rejected the claims made by Mr. Trump, reiterating his government's position during a meeting with Mr. Trump at the White House in May. Leaders of Iran, Egypt, and the UN have met in Cairo to discuss Iran's nuclear program after the United Nations nuclear watchdog agency says Iran is further increasing its stockpile of uranium enriched to near weapons-grade levels. The Director General of the Vienna-based International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, says the agency has compiled its report seen by the Associated Press over the weekend, also stressing the need for negotiation at the joint press conference. The IAEA report says Iran, as of May 17, had amassed 408.6 kilograms of uranium enriched up to 60%. That's an increase of almost 50% since the IAEA's last report. The 60% enriched material is a short technical step away from weapons-grade levels of 90%, while Iran's leadership says it believes the IAEA report is politically motivated by Mr. Grossi's hopes of becoming the next UN Secretary General. And staying with the UN, Monday was election day at the General Assembly, and Germany's former Foreign Minister, Annalena Baerbock, has been elected to head the 193-member world body in a secret ballot vote, making her the 5th woman to be elected in its capacity. When Ms. Baerbock appeared before the Assembly to discuss her candidacy on the 15th of May, Russia's Deputy UN Ambassador, Dmitry Polyansky, lashed into her, saying she has repeatedly proved her incompetence, extreme bias, and lack of understanding of the basic principles of diplomacy. Ms. Baerbock got 167 votes, almost double the 88 votes needed to win, while high-ranking German diplomat Helga Schmid received 7 votes as a write-in and 14 countries abstained. Meanwhile, Nigeria's diplomat Ezekwesili David Anyanwu, vice chair of the 79th session of the UN Second Committee, presided over the session. Diplomat Anyebo is one of the very few Nigerians in history to be elected as a principal officer of a UN session.
I call to order the 27th meeting of the Second Committee at the 79th session of the General Assembly. Distinguished delegates, before proceeding to the election of the chair and other members of the Bureau of the Second Committee for the 8th session of the General Assembly, I first invite the committee to fill the vacancy of the unaspired term of the chair of the Second Committee at its 79th session. Following the completion of the tour of duty in New York of His Excellency Muhammad Abdul Wahid of Bangladesh, the group of Asian Pacific states has endorsed the candidature of His Excellency Salahuddin Noman Chowdhury, permanent representative of Bangladesh to the United Nations, to complete the remainder of the term of the post of chair of the Second Committee at its 79th session. In the absence of any other nomination, I propose that in accordance with the rules 103 and 105 of the Rules of Procedure and established practice, the committee decides to elect by acclamation His Excellency Salahuddin Noman Chowdhury of Bangladesh to complete the remainder of the term of the chair of the Second Committee at its 79th session. I hear no objection. It is so decided. I congratulate Ambassador Chowdhury on his election and invite him to the podium to take over the proceedings of the meeting. Please remain seated. The meeting will continue momentarily. I thank you.
Let's check on the weather now. If you're here in Nigeria, you may have experienced thunderstorms and heavy rainfall as predicted by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. The weather outlook released on Sunday in the nation's capital, Abuja, envisaged morning thunderstorms on Monday with rains over parts of Taraba, Kaduna, Gombe, Bauchi, Kebbi, Sokoto, Katsina, Jigawa, and Kano states in the northern region. There are also prospects of thunderstorms with rains anticipated over parts of the Federal Capital Territory, Niger, as well as Nasarawa states in the north central. Well, here are other areas where there will be most likely be rain and thunderstorms. Kwara, Kogi, and Benue states. The southern and southeastern states should expect rain showers as well. Let's bring in climate change and environmental expert Professor John Osonwa, who incidentally is in the southeastern state of Abia, is in Abia State, in his village of Ohafia, where he has grown a green thumb, and he wants it to remain that way for a while. Dr. Osonwa, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Right, so from what my producers are telling me, you're enjoying the good life in the village, hopefully not affected by heavy rains and thunderstorms.
Yes, I'm in Abia State. We have an organic farm here. This is the middle of the planting season. I usually come down to make sure that we stay 100% organic in our system. We've had some rains here, but luckily no damage.
And speaking of heavy rains, the state of Niger experienced a deluge a few days ago, the impacts of which, they're still reeling from, the death toll rising and the search for bodies ongoing. We understand up to 200 people may have died in that incident. But now we understand there will be heavy rain still hitting parts like this. I know you are going to attribute this to climate change, but what human factors can trigger worse outcomes for floods?
Yes, you rightly mentioned that climate change is implicated in all of this. You recall we just had devastating floods a few months ago in Maiduguri State, in Borno State, Maiduguri. Now we have this one. Looking at the human factors, I think the first thing is there needs to be a recognition that we are facing a new paradigm when it comes to rain and flooding. Because of climate change, we are seeing more severe rainfall. We are seeing more frequent rainfalls. In addition to that, the rivers and streams are higher during the rainy season because the Arctic ice is melting. Climate change is leading to Arctic ice melt, more water in the oceans and the rivers. So it doesn't take much for the water to crest in the dams, in the rivers, and lead to flooding. With regard to human factors, I think we have to look at Mokwa, for instance. This is a vital market, a transit hub. Naturally, people are building haphazardly. People are not adhering to building plans. It's not a well-planned city. So a lot of people build on a natural water evacuation routes. People are blocking the drainage systems and passageways. Indiscriminate dumping of refuse is a market. I'm sure they are throwing away a lot of waste, food waste, a lot of plastics ending up in the gutters and the drainage waste. So that can contribute to flooding. So from a human perspective, we need to look at what we're doing in terms of the way we build, where we live. People who have been habitually flooded in the past few years should move, should be relocated upstream to higher ground.
And I'm sure other states in the country may need to take, their cue from the disaster in Mokwa, Niger State. Do you think, apart from warnings like this from NIMET, there's enough sensitization to states to prevent disasters?
I believe the states are aware. Nobody's living in a vacuum now. You recall we had devastating floods in 2012. It was a wake-up call for all of us in Nigeria. And since then, a lot of the agencies have been issuing annual warnings. I know that the Hydrological Institute, the agency, also does its own. NIMET has been doing it. So a lot of the states are aware that there's an increased occurrence of flooding in Nigeria. In fact, flooding has become the most recurring, most devastating, and most expensive natural disaster that we have in Nigeria now. So everybody is aware. However, the question now is, with the information they have, what are they doing? I think a lot of times, even in this instance, we focus on relief, disaster relief, sharing of relief materials, rice, all this stuff. I think we need to prioritize prevention. There needs to be a paradigm shift to prevent. We know that we are now prone to flooding in Nigeria. So we need to be more proactive. We also need to relocate those who are in harm's way, people living on the banks of River Niger, River Benue, because of what is happening from Lagdo Dam in Cameroon, Kanji Dam in Niger, River Niger, Niger State. We need to evacuate those people living along the banks. It's no longer safe in Lokoja, in Benue. It's no longer safe for them to be there. Then the other thing we need to do, very, very important, we need to set up emergency warning systems, siren systems, so that if the water reaches a certain level, even if it's in the middle of the night, people will hear the siren and run to higher ground. Very, very important that we do that. We're going to save a lot of lives doing that.
Well, right. A pleasure talking to you again. Climate change expert, Professor John Osonwa.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And still to come on the program, Microsoft founder Bill Gates says he will be giving $200 billion fortune to Africa over the next 20 years. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program, and here's a question to you, not a trick one, I must say, but what do you do when you have so much wealth? Could you keep it? multiply it, or would you give it away like one of the richest men in the world, Bill Gates, who has announced he plans to spend most of his $200 billion fortune on improving health and education services across Africa. Mr. Gates made the announcement during an address at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa on Monday. Mr. Gates said that unleashing human potential by improving health and education should put every country in Africa on a path of prosperity. He also urged the continent's young innovators to think about how to use artificial intelligence to improve healthcare. Last month, the 69-year-old announced that he would give away 99% of his vast fortune by 2045, by when the Gates Foundation plans to end its operations. Writing in a blog post last month, he said that people will say a lot of things about him when he dies, but that he was determined that he died rich would not be one of them. Well, let's take this further. Let's bring in CEO Crowry Asset Management Limited, Johnson Chukwu. Mr. Chukwu, a pleasure having you on the program today. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, Jackie. It's my pleasure to see you
right.
again as
well. Okay, so I see you're smiling. $200 billion is a lot to smile about. Maybe when, you're not giving it away. But what would you do if you had $200 billion? Give it away like Bill Gates?
Jackie, I was just thinking while I was smiling, I wish they could appoint us as financial advisors to help them disburse the $200 billion to African countries. What would I do if I have $200 billion? I would retire to my village and be eating organic food like the man who just finished interviewing.
Right. I mean, well, we have seen philanthropy of this kind in history. There is the Ford Foundation, created in 1936 by President of Ford Motor Company and son of the company founder Henry Ford, Edsel Ford, to receive and administer funds for scientific, educational, and of course, charitable purposes. They have given away $5.7 billion over the past 5 years, but they're still making a lot of profit. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Bill Gates will never live as an ordinary man.
No, absolutely. He has an estimated wealth about $200 billion. And if he gives out 99% of that, he will still have $2 billion left to live with. And we know that the people who are called ultra high-rich individuals are those who have just $5 million and above. So he will still have up to $2 billion. He will never be a poor man. But beyond that, what matters to me is that he wants to immortalize himself in the most positive manner. He wants to live a life of impact beyond the softwares he created. He wants to improve the living standard of Africans, the most vulnerable people in the society. He's been intervening in the healthcare sector, in agriculture, in water resources, in environmental resources in Africa. And he's taking it a notch higher by now devoting 99% of his entire wealth to support African health and educational standards.
Right. And what about recipients of this fund? A lot of it will be going to the continent of Africa, which I must say needs it. More sustainable development on the horizon for the continent.
Well, I think he's certainly going to set up guidelines on how the funds will be disbursed and how they will be deployed. He had already identified 2 sectors, which are the healthcare sector and educational sector. And these are 2 of the most important sectors in terms of impact. Of course, we know, like Mandela said, it's only education that you can turn the child of a poor man or a farmer into the president of a nation. So by intervening in the educational sector, improving quality of education, improving access to education, he will actually be turning around the fortunes of Africans. The second leg of his intervention is going to be on healthcare. Of course, a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. And his intervention so far in the healthcare sector includes maternal and infant mortality, infant health, including quality of nutrition, including ensure that people below the age of 4 have good nutrition, that mothers have good nutrition before they conceive, during pregnancy, and after birth. These are very critical in having healthy society, healthy citizens. And it's people that have good nutrition, that have the mental capacity to absorb academic input. And without advancing our healthcare and educational standards, it will be difficult for us to compete in the global economic space, global economic and social space.
How impactful? You've mentioned a lot of things that money like that can do for people on the continent. But do you believe donations like these can actually help build nations in Africa, or the leaders need to do much more?
Well, handouts, assistance will never turn anybody into a successful, any country successful nation. Neither can handouts turn an individual into a prosperous person. A lot has to do with leadership in those countries. We need to create the right environment that will allow for the effectiveness of these interventions that he'll be doing. Look at issue of what he has been doing a lot to eradicate malaria and measles in Africa, particularly in Nigeria. But we've not been able to eradicate malaria because the government has not done enough to create such environmental conditions that will be difficult for mosquitoes to thrive. So there is a limit to the effectiveness of what he's going to do, but clearly his intervention will have impact. But in terms of turning Africa or turning African countries into first world countries, that will depend solely on the quality of leadership that Africa creates for itself.
Right, Mr. Chukwu. A pleasure again having you on the program today.
Same here. Thank you for having me.
Well, the Lagos State government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Systems, has officially launched the application portal for the Lagos Agrithon 2025 for youths in the state. The State Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Systems, Ms. Abisola Olusonya, disclosed this at a press briefing in Ikeja, where she emphasized that the initiative is to address the challenges of food insecurity and climate change in the agri-food ecosystem. She says the Lagos State Agrithon is an agricultural hackathon that provides a unique platform for startups to pitch their groundbreaking solutions to get access to funding, potential investors, mentorship, and enhanced visibility across the agricultural value chain in Nigeria.
We open applications for the Lagos Agrithon 2025. This year, we are proud to announce our large grant pool of a minimum of 150 million, and I use the word minimum because from our partners and our sponsors, we know that we'll be having additional funds, and this we would make available to you in terms of whatever contributions coming, so that we have definitely more than 150 million, which will be awarded, thank you, which will be awarded to a minimum again of 35 promising agri-food startups and teams across key value chains in the state's foods ecosystem. So the number 35 that I mentioned, it is a minimum, depending on the businesses when they pitch, depending on what the judges and mentors come up with in terms of seeing the score sheets and what have you, and even the requirements from the enterprises themselves. It will determine the number of businesses that will be supported. So building on the success of last year, where we supported 26 youth-led agribusinesses with 100 million, the 2025 edition expands the program to include the virtual and physical pitch sessions, a mentorship hub to strengthen business models and sharpen execution, a grand finale where you would have winners announced during the Lagos Agri-Innovation Summit 2.0, which is our flagship platform for connecting agri-food innovators with investors, policymakers, and industry leaders. The question arises, who can apply for the Lagos Agrithon 2025? We have certain criteria. You must be young, between the ages of 18 and 40, with startup. That means your business should at least not be more than 5 years old. Now, we also don't want a business that just started yesterday or 3 months ago. We need to see some evidence of seriousness. We also need to see that, okay, you have actually walked the mile a little and you have put in a lot into it, and from there we can take it up with you. Also, you must be operating in the agriculture or food system space. So you could own a restaurant, for instance. You are still a part of the food systems. You are a stakeholder of ours. But then we are looking for innovation. We are looking for the application of technology in your business, and that is an important factor.
Ghanaian frontline nurse Naomi Oti has been named winner of the 2025 Astor Guardians Global Nursing Award following recognition of her pioneering cancer care at Ghana's leading referral hospital. The oncology nurse specialist and head of nursing at the Coil BU Teaching Hospital's National Radiotherapy, Oncology and Nuclear Medicine Center was selected from over 100,000 applicants across 199 countries. She receives the prestigious honor and a prize of $250,000 during a ceremony held in Dubai, which was attended by global health leaders, including the Director General of the WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. Mrs. Oti has spent over 20 years working in cancer care across Africa, training more than 48 nurses and advocating for policy improvements in oncology services. Ghana's Ministry of Health describes her win as a symbol of national pride and praised her for advancing healthcare in Ghana and beyond. I'm equally excited for her. Well, that's it on Network Africa. Thank you for watching. I'm Joker Rogers.